It's spider time. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. I'm your host, TJ Zwarych, ready to talk about episodes 6 through 8 of I was going to say the best animated show out there right now, but Invincible's right up there too, which we're going to be talking about on Thursday. So a top 2, 1A and 1B animated show out there right now. Joining me, as always, I got my co-host, Damon Gray. How you doing today, Damon?
I'm still haunted by those Penny Parker Ultimates, man. Why you got to do that to me?
I figured since you often play with Penny Parker on your team with me now, maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
But bro, you have to remember with the ultimate sounds, they're different when it's the enemy team than when it's your own team. So it's spider time is when the other Penny's doing it.
Very good point. I hadn't thought that through. But good point. Maybe I'll consider keeping that in the bag for the season finale coming next week. We got the last 2 episodes coming next week. We got episodes 6 through 8 this week to talk about. Before we do, no guests today, so we got a lot of time. I did just fire the link to a couple people, see maybe if we get somebody coming in late here, but our guest Dennis with the alternate timeline wasn't able to join us today, and so he is going to come next week for the season finale of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. We do have the other half of the alternate timeline, Jam, joining us for our Invincible show tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 Pacific. Smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on that, because later in the night, we're also going to have our live breakdown of Captain America Brave New World. First reactions are out. They are overwhelmingly positive. So looking forward to seeing that on Thursday. And then Friday, we got our Severance episode 5 breakdown. Saturday, we got the Comic Corner. Damon, what's coming this week on the Comic Corner and Whatcha Watchin?
Oh, man. So we have a lot of comics that came out today, but the Comic Corner won't be coming out till Saturday, so you can all get ready to read some of these comics. We got Absolute Batman number 5. We got One World Under Doom number 1. I didn't realize I was coming out today until I looked at the releases and was like, oh no, the new Doom book is out today. Gotta read that. And also, I mean, as we've mentioned, we've been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals. TJ, when the first issue of Magic number 1 came out, I have read very little of that character. That was about a month ago now. Today, issue number 2 came out. I looked at it. It was well over 280 comics with Magic in it. Well over 280. So I'm very excited for the second issue for me to pick that up after this. And yes, I did see the One World Under Doom trailer. I actually just watched that. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little event fatigued, and I feel like I will always be event fatigued. And event fatigue, for those who don't know, it's like, Marvel Comics, they put out events which they tie in a bunch of all of the other comics. But essentially, this big one is Doctor Doom is Sorcerer Supreme. It is no longer Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange has had the worst luck with Marvel over the last 3 years. He's died twice. He lost the title of Sorcerer Supreme twice, and now Doom is Sorcerer Supreme. So it also is the once a decade kind of nod of Doom gets to take over the world.
Perfect timing. They had to do a Doom event in comics leading up to Doom coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like that was locked in. They absolutely had to do that. For me, I just finished Daredevil season 3. My goodness, that is an amazing season of television. I forgot just how good Ben Poindexter, Dex, Bullseye is in this season. Forgot just how good Sister Maggie is in this season. And it's such a well-written installment into the franchise. And so now we're on to our final thing we're going to watch in the Defenderverse, Punisher season 2. That's hilarious. MTF in chat is saying shout out to Dino Doom, who we were literally just talking about.
Yeah, we were. I want to see Dino Doom in live action, baby. Secret Wars, make it happen.
And so yeah, I'm on the Punisher season 2 now, and I'm just getting so excited for Daredevil Born Again in March, which of course we'll be breaking down live right after each and every episode. Shout out to Ryan Reflects in the chat right now, who has just gotten out of his Captain America Brave New World screening. He has seen it. We are seeing it, of course, tomorrow on Thursday, but Ryan already seen it, and you'll be able to find his review up on agentsoffandom.com. So stay tuned for that. I don't think there's really been too much else I've been watching. We've been just on this Defenderverse kick. I still need to catch up on the rest of Paradise. That's really been, we haven't been watching any new movies just because we've been watching so much Daredevil, so much Punisher, so much Jessica Jones, so much Luke Cage, and so
much not Iron Fist. Good job.
Movies and multiple with an Iron Fist, movies and multiple other shows kick like I usually am, but between Marvel Rivals and the Defenderverse, I haven't had much. So let's start talking about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because this is a show I'm watching. I say I'm not watching much, but other than the shows I'm on here covering every week, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Invincible, Severance, still watching those ones all the time as well. We're 8 episodes in. There's 2 episodes left of the finale. We got 3 of them this week. What did you think of 3 episodes this week, and what are your thoughts on season 1 as a whole so far, leading into the final 2 episodes?
Every week we talk about the show. Every week I say the show gets better with every release drop of episodes. At first, like we kind of said, essentially like, what if Norman Osborn was Peter Parker's mentor instead of Tony Stark? In reality, like the big what if of this universe is essentially like, what if Norman Osborn just existed in the MCU? Because as we know from the last Spider-Man movie, Norman just doesn't exist in the cinematic 616, if you will, Earth 199999. And whew, I think everything about this show so far has been very well done in terms of it being just different enough. I said this also last week. This show really feels like Marvel's version of My Adventures with Superman. It is animated. It is a different twist in take on a lot of characters and how they got to a certain point. But also you have that familiarity, and in this case, the familiarity is the overall setting of the MCU kind of as we know it. I've really been digging it. These 3 episodes continue to be some of my favorites that each episode kind of drops. I've been loving it. I love the fact that we got a fan favorite in this episode 6 with Daredevil. That sequence was so cool. Charlie Cox has become the voice of Daredevil. Even almost like the way he talked reminded me a little bit of the 90s Daredevil in the animated show with Spider-Man, like a little darker. That contrast there, just very, very good. So yes, these 3 episodes this whole season so far have been great, and I think it's because of how grounded this show is at its forefront. And it almost makes me a little happy that we'll go into like some things with Doc Ock and release, because I feel like if they tried to make this canon, a lot of people would be very upset with the MCU adjustments that they would have had to make if this was canon.
Yeah, the more we get into this, the more I'm very happy they decided to put this in a totally different universe. The usage of the Osborns and Doc Ock, it's been really, really great. And to me, my favorite part has been getting to see Daredevil in this episode. As MTF is saying, he likes flippy Daredevil more than grounded gritty Daredevil, and we were getting a lot of the flippy Daredevil in this one. I love seeing the 2 of them go toe to toe, because Spider-Man obviously stronger, but Daredevil really has the ability to counteract that spider sense, counteract those reflexes, and he's a better straight up fighter, and it's a fun seeing them go toe to toe. It's even more fun seeing the 2 of them team up together. And so we do get Daredevil in this episode. What did you think about the action between the 2 of them and the plot usage of like finding a way to get him in here?
I think finding a way to get him in here is really interesting. Again, it adds to the whole, like, what if Norman Osborn was in the MCU? That's something that Matt Murdock / Daredevil would be investigating, because this is his realm. if things start getting crazy in Hell's Kitchen, if those weapons start getting into Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil's going to find out where they come from and link it back to something and try to investigate it. The action in here, I continue to say, like, with the show, the one thing a lot of people continuously point at, and I don't think it's wrong, is like the animation style. I love the design of things. I've said this every single week. The style is hit or miss, but it thrives and shines in the action sequences. So when you have like the big kind of like rotating shot or the big wide shot of Daredevil and Spider-Man fighting each other on the rooftop of the building, of the Oscorp building, it looked very good. It looked like a comic book brought to life. I thought that was great. And also, I want to say, I know where we get to by the end of these 8 episodes, I really started to grow to really appreciate and like this Spider-Man suit. All the way down to like where the web shooters come down, like the design of them are little spiders, little red spiders. And I was like, oh, I never noticed that until now. And like they're replaceable and stuff. Like, that's so cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's growing on me a little bit as well. I still any spider suit that's not a variation of red and blue, I have a tough time just like really getting excited about it. Anytime they do something like purple or anytime it's not red and blue or the classic Venom all black with the white, it's not quite for me, but it is still a solid suit. I'll give you that.
I
for
like
sure.
that the darker colors are a navy blue and not black.
Yeah.
Because you still get red and blue, I mean, very subtly, and it's mostly white. But I like some things that are different. I know we all love our classic Spider-Man red, white, and blue suit, the red and blue suit, but like every now and then I like something different. I think the way they did this one in particular, down to the little details, very well done.
Let's talk about episode 6 as a whole. It starts out with Lonnie continuing to just go down a dark path. He gets kicked off of the football team. He won't tell Pearl what's going on, even though she is actively trying to help, trying to be involved like a good girlfriend, and he just keeps pushing her away. He's pushing away the team, school, his friends, his girlfriend. Things are getting darker for our man Lonnie.
Yeah, things have gotten pretty dark for Lonnie, and it went by a lot faster than I was expecting it to. I thought like him becoming Tombstone by the end of season 1 would have been like the turn. We'd see him slowly turn throughout, but it really took like only halfway through the season for him to truly feel like he turned. And you start to see him put down Pearl and go away from the football team, and it's heartbreaking, it's crushing, but it's also really well written, and you can see how a guy in that position can get into that position, right? How he was straight up manipulated. He thought he was doing what was best for his family, and it just ended up getting worse and worse and worse for him.
MTF bringing in chat that Lonnie is definitely hurtling towards taking over the 110th Street gang. Mm-hmm. Once Big Donovan dies, and I couldn't agree more. It's definitely looking that way. He said Big Don is about to be the inverse of Uncle Ben in that scenario, but I don't know. I mean, well, if the leader dies, Lonnie, get the hell out of there, my man. Get the hell out of there. There's nobody.
He's had several opportunities, and we'll get to it. And it's just, he's fully in. He's fully immersed on it. He almost feels like he's stuck. It's too late.
One of the things we realize in this episode is we get another call back to the MCU with this time, right? Civil War is in the midst of going on, and Norman Osborn and Thunderbolt Ross have a nice little phone call, and Norman wants himself to take down the Avengers. We learn why he's been grooming Spider-Man to be this hero. He wants to take down the Avengers, and he thinks he can build his own team to do it. We didn't trust this guy from the beginning, no matter how charming Coleman Domingo is. Mm-hmm. And now we are seeing Norman Osborn's true plans.
Yeah, we're starting to see Norman Osborn's true plans. He is, being involved with Thunderbolt Ross, which very good timing, by the way, obviously, with both A, the Thunderbolts coming out, and B, the Captain America movie with Red Hulk coming out tomorrow for the rest of the world. It's very good timing on that front. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But in a way, It's almost like either Norman's trying to make his own better Sinister Six or like his version of the Thunderbolts, because that would be closer to like almost the modern day iteration of the Thunderbolts, which is after the Mayor Fist stuff in the MCU kind of or the Mayor Fist stuff in Marvel Comics recently happened. He made it so the Thunderbolts were the only allowed superhero team in New York City. And if the Sokovia Accords kind of represent that in a way, then it's almost like Norman's making his little Thunderbolts team.
Did you catch the Eleanor Bishop name drop in
I
episode 5?
did. Crumbs, baby, crumbs.
Nico and Harry are bonding this episode over being pissed off at Peter, trying to become better friends with each other. And this was like, this storyline in the series, I get it because they're high school kids. I totally get it. It's so reasonable to have, oh my gosh, I have a best friend. They have a new friend. Oh no, they're like, that storyline is a little overplayed for me. And it's, even though it does make complete sense to high school kids, it took me out of things a little bit because I felt like it was the part of the story I was the least interested in. But we do get a little bit of a tease of Nico's power sets as the two of them are hanging out with her amulets. They're bonding over tarot. They're having some good vibes, and Harry accidentally lets it slip that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
It wasn't so much accidentally let it slip. He just thought Nico knew, which is genuinely totally reasonable considering Nico's like, I'm his best friend. We are best friends. We tell each other everything. He's like, oh, then you obviously know that Peter's Spider-Man. And then she clearly didn't believe him until Peter comes home and all the stuff and all the Spider-Man stuff falls out. And I felt for Nico here. In a usual case of like the teen drama stuff, you're just kind of like, here we go again. But like, especially in this case, Nico being like the foster kid very clearly doesn't have many other friends, if any at all, other than be like, hey, Pearl type of thing. Like, I really felt for her here. And I thought it was actually pretty well written to be not annoying.
Fair. I totally feel that for sure. I really liked episode 6 as a whole. I thought it was really, really good. We get the fun action sequences. We get Peter balancing his personal life. Mm-hmm. And we get Daredevil, of all things. We get the villain teases. Osborn tells Peter that Daredevil was sent by Doc Ock, and so he's trying to push Peter against him because he knows Daredevil is investigating him. And Doc Ock fully creates the suit that turns Matt Gargan into the Scorpion. It had a little bit of everything. We get action, we get emotional stuff, we get a super cool cameo, and there's
some really subtle Easter eggs in there as well. When they're going through their old VHSs, 2 of them popped out. One of them is Zaniac, which is like the movie that was in Loki season 2 that they were attending with like the TVA agent, like starring in that movie. And then the other one is Tombbuster, which is the movie that Moon Knight is watching in the facility. So there's some really subtle kind of like MCU Easter eggs in there. I was like, oh, I caught this was a very Easter egg heavy episode, which was very fun.
Couldn't agree more. As we dive into episode 7, things start heating up. Things start really, really heating up towards the end of the series. We got Tombstone fully integrated. Lonnie as Tombstone is fully integrated into the 110th Street gang. He's sleeping there. He's fighting in gang wars. Scorpion is on the prowl. We got Scorpion versus Tombstone and Peter Parker's Spider-Man right in the middle, trying to stop it all. And it's not a Peter Parker story unless he has his personal life being like, what the hell, Peter? You're not here. What could you possibly be doing? She knows he's off being Spider-Man. Now I need a little bit of slack, Nico. But again, this is a high school kid. This is not a fully grown adult who's able to think critically and separate their feelings from a situation.
But she's also said previously in the show, whether I agree with how she would actually feel about this position or not, about the whole hero business and how she weirdly sides with Tony Stark over Captain America. But there's precedent to how she feels that they laid the groundwork for.
And again, the anger we get from her, the sadness we get from her leads to her hanging out with Harry. And most excitingly, we get to see more of her powers starting to manifest. She has no idea how to drive, but she wins a street race because her power is helping her out a little bit.
Yeah, you got a little bit of like some Nico amulet magic going on. A little tease, some crumbs, as we'd say. We got some crumbs. I hope. I mean, look, I know we are now after this point, just 2 episodes left. I'm very glad that there's a season 2 and seems like there's also a season 3, because if we don't get full Nico Minoru by the end of this season, it seems like we are at least putting the groundwork, we're putting the dirt level, boots in the ground level work with Nico to build her up to that point.
Are you starting to see a little bit of what I was saying when I wrote my review at the beginning of the season, where I was like, this is really cool, but the stuff they're setting up for future seasons is even cooler.
I'm still digging this story that they're telling, especially with like, we get to see what would happen if this Scorpion really truly became the Scorpion, because in freshman year? No, not freshman year. Homecoming. Golly,
Yeah,
I'm confusing the show and
original
the MCU. Yeah, we saw Scorpion in there, but he was like already in prison and like clearly had like some eye issue and stuff. So Spider-Man was able to deal with him, but it didn't seem like he had his full getup yet. And it's interesting, which is kind of like what I'm getting to, where I'm glad this show isn't canon, because we all know that if it was, we all know Doc Ock would be a former Tony Stark employee turned to like do all this stuff and always come back to Tony in the end. So I'm glad that in
Tony
this
would
case,
be his Osborn for sure.
Yes, I'm glad that in this case it's Norman.
Yeah, I agree there. It brings some familiarity to the Spidey story, even though we're switching things up with this. It's like, that's classic. Dr. Octavius, Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius will always hate Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, the Iron Patriot, whatever he is at the time. Those two will never, ever, ever like each other. And we get the classic, oh no, everybody's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Pearl follows Lonnie. She's at the 110th Street gang headquarters while Scorpion shows up, while Spider-Man shows up. We get the big turf war. We get the big battle. And for the very first time, Peter's alone in all of this. He's beginning to realize, maybe I should have relied more on my friends as opposed to Norman Osborn, I think. And Harry and Nico are off together, and his dude in the desk is no longer there. Osborn is off being Osborn and not listening to a thing Peter says. And looks like he's about to die. Scorpion suit's leaking gamma radiation. He's out of webs. He gets stabbed right through the chest. Scorpion's beating the shit out of him, Damon.
Oh, yeah. And this is also like this version of Peter almost seemingly relying too much on the suit rather than just being Spider-Man. And in this case, he really pays the price for it until the end, when Norman calls in his glider to save the day, just like how Tony sent in his husk of an Iron Man suit to save the day with him off the ferry. It's very symbolic on how they're telling almost some of the same beats from Homecoming, but almost in just a more fun way, a more organic way for
this show is everything What If should have been.
Well, here's the thing about What If. This show has 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And in What If, you get 1 episode per thing. You're only able to tell a sliver bit of a time.
It's
this
just
is
the way
what
they're
What
telling
If
the
can
story,
be.
though, with this same beats, but totally different events and totally different characters. Like, that's to me what I wanted out of What If.
Yeah, sure, but at the same time, you're only getting that one episode, which is brutal, right? Like, you can't get fully invested into any of these characters outside of Peggy Carter, who was the only real consistent from season 1 to the finale and maybe a little bit of the Strange Supreme stuff. Regardless, I kind of want to push the what if stuff to the side because I really enjoy that this show feels, and I mean this kindly towards the current MCU, this show has that ability because it's animated to feel like a fully fledged New York City, to feel like a fully fledged MCU, if you will, universe, where we see characters show up that you're not expecting to show up, whether it be Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Captain America making a quick little like appearance in a, at least a picture frame, but it feels like everything, the world is happening around it, also because of the fact that like Civil War is going on in the background. And I really dig that.
Episode 8, we get the moment where, like, right after you said, Tony sends the husk of the Iron Man armor, or later on, he sends the actual Iron Man armor with himself in it to give Peter a talking to. And we get that moment with Norman. But you see the total contrast between the two different characters. Tony is very flawed as a human being. But ultimately, he wasn't a terrible mentor, and he was a very good hero for the planet Earth. Wasn't a great mentor, but he wasn't terrible. And you see him, he says, Peter, stay away from this. Peter doesn't listen. So he says, like, you got to shut it down. This is my fault. I put you in a situation you weren't ready for. It's not your fault. It's mine. I should not have done this. I wanted you to be better than me. You're not ready. Let's shut it down. Mm-hmm. Whereas Norman, he's the one who sent Peter into these situations. He was the one who was encouraging him to keep going, to do more. And he still hits him with the maybe you're not ready speech, even though he's the one who wasn't there for him. He's the one who was supposed to be looking over the situation. Peter was under the impression that he had Norman at his back, and he wasn't there. And Norman is still saying, you're not ready. You can't hold back. Tony's telling him, you got to be more careful because people can get hurt. Norman's telling him, you can't hold back because you're special and you need to prove it. It's a very interesting contrast to the two dynamics. And we might as well, even though it's later in the episode, we might as well just talk about it now.
Yeah.
With great power comes great respect.
The second I heard Colin Dominguez, I just went, ooh, because the take on it from a Norman Osborn point of view is both, as MTF mentioned, it's diabolical, but it just fits Norman so perfectly in that scenario. And at that point, I am worried that, like, oh no, is this Peter going to go down that path?
Especially when this episode is ripe with even more Aunt May and Peter bonding, even more Uncle Ben references. We get no Uncle Ben references in the MCU, and this one is just plump full with them as they're bonding with each other. It kind of puts that to me is, it's funny, the relationship aspect, the emotional parts of this episode with great power comes great respect parts, with the talking about Uncle Ben, with the talking about with May, that's to me is hitting really hard. And all the while, we're getting Thunderbolt Ross versus Otto Octavius. We got Iron Man showing up in the classic suit. And we got Peter and Pearl. Peter and Pearl starting to bond a little bit. Peter's having his moment with his crush, opening up, showing her who he is now and how he has grown up. What stood out to you about episode 8? I'm looking at my notes. I have bitch ass Norman in there after he says that with great power comes great respect type of thing. Lonnie's rising his way up the ranks. We'll talk about the Easter eggs in the end of the episode later, but like they throw a lot at us right at the start. And it's just all putting the pieces in place for an epic finale.
Yeah, and again, I just love I just love that this show is as grounded as it is, and I really truly hope it stays that way. I think some of the standouts we haven't mentioned, we also saw our first glimpse, I guess you can say, our first drawing of like what Uncle Ben kind of looks like in the MCU, and yeah, sure, he looks like an Uncle Ben. That's fine, but we got a lot of like little Ben moments in there. It's like, yay, we did it, we got there. So that was neat. The one moment in here that I think to me stood out is while Peter is getting his little moment with Pearl, he's still trying to help Lonnie, who is still his friend at that point. So he gives him one last plea to be like, Lonnie, I know what you're going through. I can't actually tell you why. I kind of know what you're going through, but I understand where you're coming from. Please don't do this. And Lonnie says, nah, get out of my way. But that moment where Peter goes out of his way to try to still help Lonnie is a very Peter Parker moment, and I really enjoyed that. By the end, I said I really have grown to like this white with the navy blue with some very small red highlights in this suit. By the end, though, TJ, it looks like we're getting what we wanted to get, what we are so accustomed getting, which is the classic red and blue suit.
The beginning of this episode, like you said, it makes you fearful for Peter. You get with great power comes great respect. You got him going down this dark path. He's almost dead, frankly, and everything seems to be going terribly wrong until the end, where Harry starts prepping a new suit for Peter. We got Spidey back in action. And let me tell you, even though it didn't come from Mary Jane Watson,
it works.
It works. Go get him, Tiger.
Yeah, it worked. I was like, yeah.
Got me excited as hell for him to go out there and save the day. Like that moment just reminded me of the exact same vibe of Far From Home.
Mm-hmm.
When Happy's like, so what are you going to do? You're by yourself. You don't have your tech. What are you going to do? And that's to me a similar moment to come on, Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming, where he's lifting up the thing, realizing how strong he is. It's a real Spider-Man moment.
Yeah, the only downside is it's still made by Osborn. I wish it was like one of those, because we saw the sewing machine at one point that he was like, what are you going to do? And Peter's like, hold on, I have something still, and it's been in his closet the whole time. I think that probably would have been a little more authentic Peter Parker, like instead of Oscorp tied to it, but it's still cool. It's still pretty cool, and I still like it. There was a lot of like other little things. We saw our first glimpse at what this version of Chameleon is as well.
Chameleon in
like again, this world. These are 30-minute episodes. It's fleshed out. It feels like it's been lived in. I love the small little things of those character appearances that we saw earlier when they're like escaping the prison, and it sets up that group. But Peter's Rogues Gallery is boiling and bubbling and bubbling. So if we get to when we get to a season 2, there's like so much on the table still here at play, and I'm really excited for it. I'm just fascinated where this can go from here, and I really truly hope, like I said, that this doesn't get too crazy in the last 2 episodes.
Where do you think it does go from here? 2 episodes remaining. Obviously, I can't speculate. I've seen them. I did tease that maybe it does get a little crazy in the final 2 episodes, but I do think these are really good. And again, it does still get me more excited for season 2 than it did wrap up the story for me personally. But I think especially episode 10, episode 9 for me is like still a little bit of setting up for the finale, of putting some pieces in place. And then episode 10, it's just an all-out finale, like, for lack of a better word. Like, it all comes all roads come to a conclusion, and it's an epic finale to close things out. How do you think this is going to go in the last 2?
Here's where I hope it goes. I hope by the end, like, yeah, maybe Lonnie becomes the head of the 110th. And I would like to see more of the street level stuff brought to life. So that way, if we see the return of Daredevil in season 2, and we get that story where Spider-Man and Daredevil are teaming up to try to help take down some of these gangs or mafia organizations within New York, because we haven't seen him out. I don't even know if he's going to be in this season. We saw early concept art of Kingpin when they first announced this show. We haven't seen him yet. So possibly maybe that'll be like a season 2 thing, or he pops up at the end. But I would like to see more of that world. Like, just stay in that world right now, because it fits Peter. It fits Peter at this moment for things not to get too bananas just yet.
I'll say there's one thing in the finale nobody's gonna see coming. There is a surprise in that one that I absolutely could not believe, but we'll be breaking it down next Wednesday. The last final 2 episodes, we'll have Dennis from the alternate timeline hanging out with us. We got Jam from the alternate timeline joining us for our Beyond Invincible after show on Thursday. And then later in the evening, we have our Captain America Brave New World live breakdown, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern time. We're going late. We're going to the theaters, and we're going to come home to talk about it. So make sure you join us for that one. We're going to have Dave Gonzalez, author of the MCU Reign of Marvel Studios book, which you can now find our own Carlos Freites' review on the back of the book. You can see little Agents of Fandom there. It's pretty darn cool. We're also going to have Aaron Perrine of Phase Hero joining us as well. And then on Friday, we're talking about Severance, Episode 5, myself, Rachel Leishman, Rachel Tollison, and Leah Marilla, all of the Mary Sue, and other places as well. And then Saturday, the Comic Corner is coming. Go back to the beginning of the show. You can find the books that Damon teased. Before we get out of here, you messaged me after I'd already put my phone away a couple nights ago. You said I had collected all my comics. I put them all up.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
And you asked me to guess. I'm not gonna guess, but I want you to tell me and tell the viewers who your top. You said 10. I don't know how I was gonna guess 10. Maybe if you said 3, I would have been less overwhelmed.
You can.
But who are your top comic book characters, since you have collected and logged every single comic you own?
Mm-hmm. This was a wild thing that I did. I'd spent a whole day doing this. I don't think you can. Do you want to guess at least number 1?
My top guess was gonna be Nightwing, and then I realized
Nightwing is 2.
A lot more Marvel books than DC ones. Mm-hmm, but the way you're thinking right now is maybe it's not going to be maybe that's incorrect. I know earlier in your collections you had Iron Man at the top, and you were like, "What the hell?" Just because you don't even like Iron Man. But
it's because I have a lot of West Coast Avengers. That's the problem.
I'm gonna guess Superman.
Yes, Clark Kent number 1, because I have an entire collection of old Golden Age trades, and the trades are collected as kind of like individual ones. So it's Clark Kent, Dick Grayson, Clint Barton, Lois Lane, naturally with the Clark Kent, and then number 5, Kate Bishop, and then 6, Tony, Barbara Gordon, Steve Rogers, Stephen Strange, and Wanda Maximoff to wrap it up. Shout out Jeff the Landshark coming in at 13.
That's awesome. Check out Damon, Fat Thor, AF on the Comic Corner. Like I mentioned, we're going to be back with live shows all throughout the week. So hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out. Follow the Agents of Fandom on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. You can find my interviews with Robert Kirkman and Simon Rasiopa, creators of Invincible, up on the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Same with my interview with Julius Ona, director of Captain America, Brave New World. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will see you not once, but twice tomorrow on Thursday. Thanks for the live chat. Thanks for those tuned in after the fact. We'll see you next time. Peace.